Damien Kingsbury in Melbourne. He's a professor of political science at Deakin University. He was also an international observer to Myanmar's elections in 2015. Professor, it's great to have you on the program. Now, you've travelled to the country. You've seen how elections have been held there. Are you surprised at what you've seen play out in Myanmar over the last 2 weeks?
No, I think it was quite predictable. Indeed, I think I predicted this sort of process unfolding more or less as it has. What we saw last night in Myitkyina in Kachin state was not surprising. Myitkyina is the centre of the Kachin rebellion against the central government in any case. So the military has quite a strong presence there. But we did expect that there would be many more arrests, which we've seen. We did expect that there would be a gradual stepping up of violence by the military against protesters. And today, with a general strike, it's likely we will see more violence.
And Prof, all of this has been expected. And of course, we've expected the international reaction. We've seen a lot of statements, a lot of tweets, but no real action. Is there actually political will, especially from Western countries, who many of these demonstrators have been appealing to actually get involved in what's happening in Myanmar?
Western countries have begun to apply sanctions against the generals and some of the military-owned companies in Myanmar. But the reality is that the economy is supported by China and they have that as a backdrop, so it's not going to hurt very much. Beyond that, short of a direct intervention, there's not very much that external countries can do. We have to keep in mind that any external intervention or any use of force requires the sanctioning of the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council permanent members includes China and Russia. China in particular backs the Myanmar military, so they're not going to allow any sort of really serious intervention in that country. What we are seeing, though, is that the military is moderating its responses. It's not going straight into a massacre scenario, if you like. It is gradually stepping up its repression. It recognises that the international community is watching. It is much more economically exposed than it's been for decades, many decades. And of course, the military itself is divided between moderates and hardliners. And the moderates could fall out with the hardliners if this goes too far. So the hardliners will continue to push. They will continue to ramp up repression. They will continue to crack down on protests, but they will do it in a graduated manner.
Yeah, very concerning for those taking part in those protests. But Prof, I want to look at how the military that's currently in control affects minority groups in Myanmar, especially when we speak about the Rohingya, considering they've already had their human rights violated for several years by Aung San Suu Kyi's democratically elected government. What happens now to them?
Well, the Rohingya have always been on the outer in Myanmar. They simply are not regarded as legitimate citizens of the state. There is a very deep-seated prejudice against Muslims, particularly Rohingya Muslims, by ordinary Burmese, ethnic Burmese. And of course, there are other minorities. About a third of the country is made up of minority groups. So we saw 7 police officers refuse to get involved in the crackdown on protests in the east of the country. They are in Kaya state. They are ethnic Karen, and the Karen have a long history of opposition to the central government as well. So that wasn't entirely surprising. It's consistent with actions by peripheral groups in the past. But the military, I think, is going to crack down. They really have nowhere to go with this. They have 2 options. Either they give up, they accede to the protesters' demands, and we have effectively a revolution in Myanmar and the ousting of the military permanently from politics, or we see the military continue to increase the pressure with the use of live ammunition, as we have now begun to see.
Professor Damien Kingsbury live to us there from Melbourne. Really great to get your take on what's happening in Myanmar. Thank you so much.